Well, now, welcome back to the Solomon Project, where it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep that counts. I'm your host, Richard Burns. We finished our pre-trip. We fueled up the truck and our bodies with nutrients. Yes, nutrients. On my way to the third delivery. Turns out it's CNS Wholesale Grocer. And it just so happens that on this day, 60 years ago, I blessed my family with my presence, although they'll say different. What? And oddly enough, I'm making a delivery to a warehouse, which was the first warehouse I used to transport goods from.
What happened?
At my first trucking job. What a coincidence. So the first trucking job I ever received was a local job, which is extremely unusual in the trucking business. Local jobs usually ask for 1 or 2 years of over-the-road experience, and they snatched me up right out of the trucking school. It was Webster Trucking, and we used to deliver to a variety of supermarket chains for CNS Wholesale Grocer, which is where I'm going today. First trucking job on my first day on Earth. Wow. Nice coincidence. I want to bring your attention because on occasion, and by the way, this is not financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. Nor investment advice. Just keep that in mind, okay? We had a report on Wednesday and a report, was it yesterday? Well, you know what? Chronologically, I could be way off. But let me break it down this way. The CPI report and the PPI report both came out. The CPI is the Consumer Price Index. The PPI is the Producer's Price Index. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but I will tell you that this is data that sorry about that, checking the scene out. This is data that the central bank, our central bank, the Fed, my homeboy Jerome Powell and the rest of his crew. So in case you didn't know, the Fed is composed of 12 people. It's not just Jerome. And the deal is that the PPI report caused some alarm in the investment community. It indicated that there is obstruction detected, as you heard. No, that's the internal camera, by the way, in case you're curious to know. It's got an AI component. Unfortunately, it's in a bad position, so the inward facing camera is blocked, and it's informing me obstruction detected. There it is again, that it's being obstructed, so it can't look at me. Maybe it feels sad because it can't look at me. So the data that comes out of the PPI, the CPI, and there's one other that is the consumer. Let me see if I get it right. So I might get it wrong, and I don't want to get it wrong because I want you guys to get it right. So my memory, y'all. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index. I hope I got that right. I hope my memory is serving me correctly. That's the most important one that the Fed really focuses on, if I remember correctly. And that one is derived from consumer prices. So of course, if we're talking about the economy and we're talking about expenses for everyone within this economy, yeah, you're going to pay attention to that. However, the Producer Price Index did express inflation higher than expected. But this inflation is going to impact the producers, right? The corporations, the businesses that produce, that provide goods and services. And the main reason for this increase, for this inflation, is, or has to do with, the tariffs. Now, this tariff is impacting the producers. However, the expectation, and it hasn't happened across all businesses yet. The expectation is that this increase in the cost of goods and services as a result of tariffs is going to be passed on to the consumer, meaning us. That's the expectation. Again, it hasn't happened across the board with all businesses. Some businesses are taking advantage before it actually happens. So they're raising prices without having been impacted yet. Some businesses ordered goods in larger amounts before the application of the tariffs and started increasing prices before the tariff hit. Now, here's the thing. There are companies that have not passed the increase in their expenses as a result of the tariffs to the consumer yet. So what's the deal? That means they're absorbing it. That means they're taking the hit. The company's taking the hit. And that hit is going to impact their bottom line. It's going to impact their profits. How long can they do that for? Or how long are they willing to do that for? Shareholders of these corporations might express a dislike in the fact that the corporations that they're shareholders of are not doing what would typically be expected for the corporation to do, which is to pass the cost on to the consumer, thereby preserving the profits. Does the corporation have to do that in order to preserve the profits? The board of directors of a corporation, their responsibility is to the shareholders, not to the economy, to the shareholders. If the shareholders feel like the board of directors are mismanaging the company and causing them harm, in this case financially, they can vote boards of directors out. Or worse yet, they can sue the board of directors. They can sue the CEO. On a personal level, being the CEO and being threatened to be voted out may not be an appealing direction to go in for the CEO. Things might just be a little too good financially as CEO of that corporation to just allow him or herself to be voted out. It's possible. After all, I think it was the CEO of PepsiCo that received a $24 million bonus. That's for 1 year. So think about that. If your job was to say, hey, we're gonna offer you a $24 million bonus for the work that you've done this year, I don't know, what would you say? Well, the board of directors can make a decision. And remember, the board of directors are responsible to the shareholders, not the economy. Why do I say that? Because the corporation can decide to save plenty of money by firing people. Yes, by firing people. You will save money. You'll be able to absorb the tariff and maintain the profit level somewhat, and maybe keep the shareholders happy. Do the shareholders care if people get fired? The shareholders, well, most shareholders probably don't even know what kind of decision the board members are going to make, except the shareholders that own a lot of shares. So they're definitely going to be on top of things, paying very close attention, making phone calls, speaking to brokers, speaking to whoever they need to speak to find out whether or not the corporation is doing everything possible to make sure that the shareholders remain profitable. Why else would you invest if it's not to make a profit? Why else would you be in business if it's not to make a profit? So the CPI report came in within range of the expectations. So it's not really a big deal there. But the PPI, on the other hand, that one went way above the expectations. And way above means that, yeah, inflation is an issue. Now, how's the economy as a result of all this? We actually don't know yet, even though the president gets on my homeboy's case, and my homeboy has said it many times, I need to see the data before I make a decision as to whether increase or decrease interest rates. I need to see the data. And here's an example, the PPI. The expected increase was supposed to be 0.2 or 0.02, and it came out to 0.9 or 0.09. Much higher than expected. Sounds like a small amount, but not when you're talking about the PPI. That was a lot higher than expected. Well, here's something to think about. When the economy is not doing well, when it's sluggish, when it's slowed down substantially, and it needs a boost, typically what central banks will do when the economy needs a boost, meaning that the economy is not doing that well, I repeat, this is what they'll do when the economy is not doing well. You lower interest rates. That's what you do when the economy needs a boost because it's not doing well. But the administration is saying that this is the best economy. This is a great economy. That's contradictory, because the administration is asking, or it's kind of threatening, the Fed to lower interest rates. Well, now wait a minute. Does the economy need a boost? Is the economy not doing well? Is you're putting out two signals here? Which one is it? Which one is it? Long-term investors, does it matter? Not really. It would depend on what your portfolio had. You may have to lower certain amounts of shares of one type of investment, increase another, just to preserve your portfolio, to preserve your capital. You might. If you have good, solid companies, you may not need to do any of that. Provided that you have good, solid companies. However, if you're active and you're trying to maybe get a little more, make a little more money here and there, you might want to make a couple of changes. But that can come with time, experience. If you're just starting, that's not something you need to worry about. Not really. I'm not a fan of ETFs, but there are ETFs that people invest in that help them diversify their money. And for all those who aren't familiar with the term diversification, it means you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. It means you're taking your money and you're spreading it amongst other companies, not all in one. And if you want, I love to use this analogy. Imagine you're in an elevator and the elevator has one cable. That one cable represents the one corporation you have shares of. You're on the 18th floor and that one corporation that you invested in goes bankrupt. That's your cable. Your cable just snapped and you're on the 18th floor. See you later. However, in diversification, you have more than one cable. You might have 2. You might have 10. You might have 100 cables. So if you're on the 18th floor and one company goes bankrupt, all the other cables are there. So you're still good. You're still in the game. You're still on the 18th floor. That's diversification, or that's the advantage of being diverse. So the PPI has a different result of the PPI and the CPI both gave 2 separate signals. The CPI signaled that everything was all right, nothing to worry about. The PPI said different. It says, yeah, that we could potentially be facing an inflationary event. Kind of, sort of concerning. Now, for all you guys who go shopping for food, shopping for whatever, fuel, you guys are the boots on the ground, and you guys have a more accurate picture of what's going on around you. Again, these corporations might absorb the tariffs, but at what cost? The shareholders might say, nah, we're not doing that. Either you increase the prices accordingly to cover the cost of the tariffs, or you find some way to make this right. And one way to make it right is firing people, which would impact the economy. Well, raising the prices will impact the economy too, but firing people, putting people out of work, you put people out of work, they might get a check for a few weeks, a few months through unemployment insurance. But at some point, you're going to want to go back to work, because unemployment insurance is not going to cover you for that long. You need to find some employment. How many corporations are choosing to absorb the tariff and fire people as well. So what kind of job market are you going to be headed into as a result of the decisions that some corporations are going to be making with respect to making up for the higher cost in relation to the tariffs? And let's not forget how AI is impacting the job market, how robotics is impacting the job market. So once all your unemployment benefits are done, what will you be going into? What kind of job market will you be going into? And if you guys have any idea, just leave it in the comments. Is the economy bad? Is it sluggish? Do we really need to lower interest rates in order to give the economy a boost? Does the economy need a boost? Because the administration is telling the Fed, you guys need to lower the interest rates, but the economy's great. I don't know. I don't know about that. I do think I know somebody who might know. I'm gonna have to reach out just to find out and see. Hang on one second. Let me see if I can locate him. If I can locate him, he could probably provide us with that answer. Oh, this is not good. See this truck here on the shoulder? I got a truck on my left blocking me. Now, as a truck driver, he should have known better. He should have either slowed down and let me in the left lane, but he didn't. No courtesy whatsoever. Okay. Yep, here he is. Kitty, come on, let these people know. Arabam